Welcome back to SculptSpace. This is the second part of the Octoboy. In the first part, we made this mold, the silicone mold, from a clay sculpture, and now I'm going to show you guys how to cast, paint, prime it, and then gloss it. So let's get started. First, I'm going to go over the materials that we're going to need for this entire process. Alright, so the materials you're going to need are, you're going to need one of these small cups. Now, this is what we're going to use to cast with. We'll put the liquid plastic in here, urethane resin, pour that into the mold. That's the first step. You also need some popsicle sticks, some small ones are fine. This is to stir it all up. It's just a good tool to have, and you can just throw them away and they're pretty cheap. Another good thing to have would be maybe some bamboo skewers. I just have some of these lying around. These are nice to get the resin bubbles out whenever it's finished casting. Along with that, we have gloves, obviously. If this stuff gets on your hand, it's going to burn pretty bad. So these are a good thing to have. These will just protect your hands from the paint getting on it or resin. After that, I also have Dremel, cord Dremel. This isn't necessary. You don't need to have like a mechanical sander, but this is just nice to have if you're doing a lot of different projects. What you can also use is just plain old grip sandpaper. I got 80 coarse. This is going to make it pretty rough, so after I hand sand it, I go in with this smoother stuff and make sure that it's all smooth and not all grainy. So that's the sanding. Once we got it sanded, we're going to go and prime it. I have some of this primer. It's a flat black. I chose black because the resin casts in a white color, and I thought black would be good to cover it with, so I would know what's already covered and what's not. Because whatever is white, I would know that it's not covered. So yeah, just pick up some primer, whatever primer you like, totally fine. I picked up this black stuff. And then once that's good and dried, we're gonna start painting. You'll need just a palette, semi-clean. You can use a paper plate if you just want to try it out. You don't want to go out and buy a palette. Just use a paper plate or whatever. It's kind of durable, but nothing you're gonna keep track of. I want some paintbrushes. Unlike in the last video where you could use cheap paintbrushes to brush on the mold, I'm going to use good paintbrushes because it's just like painting. Just pick your favorite ones. Big brushes cover larger amounts of areas, to smaller ones fill in the eyes or smaller detail. So pick up some different variations of those. Also, a little cup of water. It's just like a yogurt jar. I just fill it up with water. It's kind of cute. And that's what I use to rinse my brushes off pretty easily. Also, put this on the table, but paper towels, very important. If you make messes, just wipe it all off. It's good to dry off your brushes that you've already used. And most importantly, probably the paints. I use golden artist colors. These seem to work the best for me. They can have it. They're pretty expensive, but they do last a good bit, a while. Just have some of these. Picked up some of these sort of neon colors. They're pretty translucent, so or watery, which means you have to add more coats. But if you're okay with that, you can do that instead. But these stick on there super well. one coat will do just fine, but they're on the higher end of things. And our second to last thing is gloss. You want, with this guy right here, I glossed him up. Before, he just kind of looks like a dull sculpture, but you spray some gloss on him, maybe 3 coats or so, and he'll be looking nice. Like he just got out of the water, since he's aquatic. Just adds a nice touch to it at the very end. And then, the most important, it's going to be our resin. I use Smooth Cast 300. It's a nice multi-purpose resin that you can use. You got part A, part B, just like the molding stuff. And yeah, this is what we're going to pour into our mold. It's going to be equal parts. So yeah, we'll get to mixing this up and putting it in our mold. See you then. Yeah. Okay, so first what we're gonna do is we're gonna shake up those jugs. Yes, I know. Next we get our bigger cup, and we're now just pouring in part A with part B, and then we're gonna stir that all together. Once we've stirred that all together, it is now time for us to pour in the resin into our mold. Once you've poured in a little bit of the resin, you can start swishing it around, sort of moving the resin around. This just ensures that the resin gets into the small pieces, like the eyes, basically just the eyes in this sculpture. And then you go back to pouring the rest of your resin in. Now what I'm doing is using a bamboo skewer to get all the bubbles out. You're not going to get all the bubbles out. In my experience, that's what the sanding process is going to be for. And just like that, it goes from a liquid to a solid. And now once it's finished solidifying and cooling off, it's now time to take your sculpture out. For me, this takes a little bit longer than I would like. It's a little bit harder to get out, but that's just the risk you have to take, sculpting a more intricate creature. So you see me struggle for a while, but it's all worth it in the end. Just like that, you got a duplicate. Now that we have casted this, see the bottom's still a little bit rigid. It's got a couple bubbles in the bottom. So now we're going to go my my Dremel, and we're going to sand this bottom smooth, and I'll show that process now. Now this part is pretty self-explanatory. You're just trying to get rid of all those sharp edges and just make it smooth on the bottom. And that's what it'll look like after you're done with the Dremel part. And now it's time to hand sand. This part is just useful to get into those smaller places that the Dremel can't reach. Now that I've gone in with the coarser sandpaper, I'm now going to go in with a more finer sandpaper to really smooth things out. So now that we have Dremel sand this, and we've sanded it with a little bit of sandpaper, and then we use this little guy to smooth them out, smooth like a baby's bowl. Now it's got all this dust on it, and we don't want that to be on there when we prime it. So I'm gonna just rinse it under some water and then let it dry, and it should be ready to prime. You wanna make sure you shake up your primer well. And now on a scrap piece of cardboard, you can lay your sculpture on there and just spray away. And yes, you do want to get the bottom. Alright, so this video ran a little longer than I thought it was. It ended up being somewhere around 13 minutes. I was going to paint in this part, but I decided I'll make the painting part a little more detailed. So I'm just going to wait and put it in the next episode of the series. So in this part, it shows you how to go from here to here, which is casting in here, sanding, and priming. And in the next episode, I'm going to teach you or show you how to paint this guy. We're going to use a bunch of different techniques, like dry brushing. That's a big one for sculpting, to make it look more realistic. So I'm going to teach you how to paint and gloss in the next episode, which should come up, or should be out pretty soon after this one. So look forward to that one. And I'll see you guys in the next episode.